Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedules, either working on distance education or getting ready to work on distance education. I wanted to thank you for taking time to join the California Retired Teachers Association and CalSTRS to try to help answer some questions that you might have regarding retirement. In this next year. It's gotten rather complicated due to COVID-19, and our goal is to try to help answer any questions that you might have, clear up any myths, help you understand how this might impact you and the district. And so with us this morning, I wanted to introduce Dave Walrath, who has been working on retirement issues since around 1975. So he's got about 45 years of experience, one of the most knowledgeable individuals on CalSTRS and teachers' retirement issues in the state. And then a very special guest with us this morning is Jennifer Helfing Gomez with CalSTRS, who is one of their phenomenal benefits specialists out of the Glendale office, who's going to be joining us this morning and sharing a presentation with you that has been specifically tailored to try to anticipate questions and issues that might come up that are specific to issues that educators are facing this year. I wanted to thank you both so much for joining us this morning, and let you know a few housekeeping rules before we start the show. The style that we're going to have this morning is Jennifer is going to be presenting a PowerPoint, and Dave and I are going to be asking a number of questions that you may already have been anticipating, or there may be some issues that you haven't even thought of that we might be raising as questions. We're going to ask you to please hold your questions until the end and put them in a question box. You will see on the right hand of your screen, there's a little section that says questions. If you click on the little triangle, you're able to write your question down. We're going to try to get to as many questions as possible. If we do not get to all of the questions, we will make sure that we answer all of them, and we will provide that information on the website. We will be sharing information with you, materials and resources, with a follow-up email. We're also going to have 4 different polls that are going to pop up during the workshop, and I'll explain the directions about the polls when we get there. So with that, I wanted to say thank you for joining us, and Jennifer, the show is all yours.
Okay, let me go ahead and end my webcam. And we will continue on with the presentation. So this workshop, some of you may have seen it before, but we've added a couple slides to make it a little bit more customizable, like Jennifer alluded to. So the first 6 or 7 slides are not going to correlate with the handout that we emailed to you. After the first 6 or 7 slides, the handout will go step by step through the material that we'll be presenting, and it's kind of your guide to remind you on steps that you may need to take, whether you're retiring this year or in 3, 5, 10 years from now. So we'll go ahead and get started. The discussion topics that we're going to cover today, we're going to go over CalSTRS, the hybrid system. This is going to be a very high-level overview of the system, just to get your feet wet, as to say, about the retirement and all of your benefits, what your choices are. So some of you may be going back to school this year, or if you're doing distance learning, you may have started or going through, your beginning of the year conferences. Some of you are vacillating between if you have to go back into the classroom, whether or not you want to. So there are some things that you can consider, whether or not, if you don't want to go back into the classroom, what you can do with your CalSTRS benefit. Also, we're going to talk about steps to retire. So those of you that really want to retire either this year or it's coming up, there are specific things that you want to do to ensure that it's a smooth process. And then there are also considerations to look forward to or to be mindful of after retirement. And so we'll go over each of these items in the next hour or so. So The hybrid system is what we consider CalSTRS. So there's a three-legged stool, and there are two programs that are mandatory. And the membership includes your defined benefit. That's your major pension, and that's going to be your lifetime monthly benefit. And it's based on a formula, which we'll go over in a few minutes. We also have the defined benefit supplement. So you have the defined benefit, which is your monthly pension. The defined benefit supplement is for work that you do beyond your full-time contract. So we do have people that can do additional duties such as summer school or night school beyond your full load, coaching. There's a lot of different duties that our members perform, and that's above what you normally do each year. So money that you earn in those extra jobs goes into this defined benefit supplement account. It accrues interest, and you'll be able to access it when you decide to retire. So those first two accounts are mandatory. And then the third account is the CalSTRS Pension 2, which is optional. It's a defined contribution plan. So if you have a 403B or a 457 plan with another company, that's perfectly fine, and we encourage you to do that. We at CalSTRS have our own program, and so we're offering it as a service to our members to put more money aside in retirement, because your defined benefit and your defined benefit supplement may not be everything you need to replace your comfort of living in retirement. Let's go further into these details. Your defined benefit, it is a valuable benefit. We do, as public employees, we have that lifetime benefit. It's risk-free. So once you have 5 years of service credit, that benefit is guaranteed. It provides secure and stable money to you for the rest of your life. Oops, sorry. It can also be paid out beyond your lifetime to loved ones. It's risk-free, it's guaranteed, and it's based on a formula. So it will not be reduced in value based on market performance, because it's not based on the market at all. It is based on a defined benefit formula. In addition to your monthly benefit from defined benefit, you have survivor and disability benefits. So these are your ancillary benefits. We have what are called survivor benefits. So if you die while active or after retirement, there is a one-time death payment that would be paid to whoever you may designate to receive this benefit. So it can be people, it can be your estate, it can be a trust, a special needs trust, or a charitable organization. So it's very important that no matter what you do today, you want to make sure that you have that one-time death benefit form filed with CalSTRS, either paper form or online. And if anything were to happen to you, we know where your money is going to go. We at CalSTRS don't keep any of your money, and we want to give it to you and your next of kin. And we want to try to avoid the probate process. So if we know who that money is going to go to, then it does end up being a smoother process. We also have, through survivor benefits, if you happen to pass away before you retire, there are monthly benefits that are applicable or available to either a spouse or partner or children in some cases. So everyone's situation can be a little bit different. I'm not going to go into the specifics for everyone, but there is information on our website, and one of the items that I've listed as one of your resources, there's a video on survivor benefits as well as disability benefits, and there's a packet of information called survivor benefits where you can put all of your important forms and keep track and share it with your loved ones so they know when you pass away what steps they need to take with CalSTRS to receive that money. We also have to, yes, go ahead.
Jennifer, I have a question about survivor benefits. So if I have not yet chosen a survivor for a benefit, is that something that I should consider doing prior to retirement? And what happens if I retire and then I decide that I actually want to change who I have for my survivor benefits?
Okay, so we have the one-time death benefit, which is a guaranteed lump sum payment, whether you die before or after retirement. We definitely want everyone to have that filed with CalSTRS. And there's also what are called option benefits or option beneficiaries. So those are elections that you would choose to make to ensure that if you pass away, a certain portion of your benefit, your money will continue on for a loved one. You can make that election before you retire or at the time of retirement. It is, if you consider it kind of like life insurance, so it's going to reduce your monthly payment while you are retired, but you're going to we're going to pay out another lifetime after your death. So there are various payment choices. Those benefits, again, you can choose it before you retire if you meet certain eligibility requirements or at the time of retirement. After retirement, there are very few instances where you can elect one of the options. There are 4, I believe we are looking at a 5th one, and it has to do with your marital status before retirement or after retirement. And so you'll want to check our member handbook for the ramifications or come to a benefit specialist appointment so we can talk about that. But if you do have that option in place, you're covering your loved ones. If you do make a change to that option before retirement, there may be an assessment, which is a monthly penalty for the rest of your life. Do you really want to be quite happy with that option? You don't want to change it if at all possible, but if there is something, if say you already have an option on file and you're thinking about changing it, make an appointment with a benefit specialist so we can run the estimates to see how that may affect your monthly payment. So any other questions regarding that, Jennifer?
Yeah, not on the survivor benefits, but more on the disability benefits.
Okay.
So I have a question on disability benefits. So there have been some educators who have had COVID, and fortunately, we know that some are not as extreme, but if someone were to have some permanent health issues due to COVID or any other issue, are they able to apply for a disability retirement if they're not able to return to the classroom?
So disability benefits are something that all members are eligible to look into. It really goes by the Ed Code and retirement law. The eligibility is the disability has to be considered permanent, which means it's going to be 12 or more months, which the member will be unable to return to work in their current capacity or a similar capacity. And again, it has to be verified through medical records. So there is an application process. So based on what your doctors say on those medical documents, if it's a permanent disability, you can go ahead and apply for that benefit. Now, a disability benefit for some people can be an enhanced benefit, which means it could pay out more so than a typical service retirement, but that's usually for those that don't have a lot of service credit, meaning they haven't worked a long educational history. For those that are a little bit older and have quite a bit of service credit, a service retirement may be a more beneficial benefit. So again, if you are looking at whether a disability benefit or disability retirement or allowance could be an option for you, you'll want to make an appointment with us so we can give you both estimates for a typical service retirement as opposed or in comparison to a disability benefit. So yes, you can apply, and then our disability analyst will go through your application, look through medical records, and make a determination on whether or not it's approved. Any other questions there?
No, I'm just pontificating and a new thought popping up. If someone were to unfortunately get COVID and was out for a few months, so let's say it wasn't just the 2 weeks, but they were very ill, and if they were in the hospital and were not able to work because of that, is that something where the disability retirement would be applicable?
That would have to, there is something in a very narrow frame where there's a limited term disability program. where if through certain kinds of therapy it's anticipated that you might recover, you can apply for a limited term disability and possibly be on that benefit for a while and then go back to work as you normally would, and then retire after you're done with your career. It's not, again, something that is that common, so you can apply for it, and the disability department will have to go through and see if you're eligible for it. I'm sorry, I can't say yes or no, for everybody, because it is based on each individual person's situation. Any other questions there?
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you do have other choices. If you are currently teaching and are kind of wondering what you want to do, that say, with your school district, they said, we're going to go back into the classroom, and you want to pause and look at your options, what you can do is, one, leave your contributions in CalSTRS and maybe look at work in the private sector. You can decide to leave teaching and just take all of your money out of CalSTRS instead of taking a retirement, and that's called a refund, and we'll go over some of the ramifications of that in the few slides coming after this. Or you can service retire. So if you're old enough and you have enough service credit, you can go ahead and start receiving your payments. So resigning from your employer and leaving your contributions. So this would be, again, a situation where you just want to put a pause to your CalSTRS benefits. You become an inactive member. It's nothing bad. It's just, we're not receiving more service credit or, your contributions. Basically, your account just stays stable. It does accrue interest every month. After 4 months, however, if you're not earning service credit or working for your employer, the disability and survivor benefits that I spoke about previously you're no longer eligible for those. If you were to go back to work, then you become eligible for those benefits again. So if you're inactive, after 4 months, those benefits kind of go away for you. When you return to work, they're reinstated. And then also what you want to be very careful about is if you just resign from your employer and not immediately retire from CalSTRS, there may be ramifications with your eligibility for health benefits in retirement if your district does offer lifetime health after you retire. Some of the larger districts, especially in the South here in LA, if you resign, from your district, you have to immediately retire the next day with CalSTRS in order for your lifetime health benefits to continue on. If there's a gap in that time frame, there could be some complications, and you'd have to talk to your employer about what you would need to do to have those lifetime benefits reinstated.
Jennifer, I have a couple of questions for you because you've just raised what could potentially be a number of red flags that I'm anticipating for some active teachers. So can I first ask a question about, so what if I left teaching and I took out my contributions? So I'm not going to get the district contributions back, and I'm not going to get the interest. So I've already lost quite a bit of earnings there. But let's say I decided in a few years I wanted to come back because I wanted to make sure I had a vested benefit and add a few more years. How much would that likely cost? Could I simply redeposit the funds and call it a day?
So what you would be referring to is taking a refund. So you're taking your contributions and interest. And this slide kind of goes over what we call the refund trap. So again, at CalSTRS, we can't tell you what to do, but we can give you information on your choice or consequence. So if you were to take a refund of your contributions, again, you're forfeiting all of your rights to CalSTRS benefits. You're not going to receive the contributions that your employer sent to CalSTRS or the state contributions that we receive. It's just what you put into the system. If you receive that payment in cash, so a direct payment to you, there could be up to 34.5% in tax withholdings and or penalties. and purchasing that money back. So if you decided to then go back into teaching, you would start out as a brand new member of CalSTRS with 0 service credit, no money in your account. What you ultimately have to do is pay back that money that we paid you plus interest. So had you just left the money on account with CalSTRS, your money would be accruing interest. But if you took it out, we need to basically replenish your account with that money so that we can be financially stable to pay out your benefit. So it is quite costly. There are calculators on our website that you can run your own estimates. Everybody is different, so it's based on how much service credit you took out of the system and how much that refund is and how long ago you took that refund and your age, and we can run an estimate about how much that'll be. So for instance, let's say you've been working for, let's say, 15 years. You may have $100,000 in your CalSTRS account. So if you wanted to then redeposit that money, you're going to be paying at least $100,000 plus interest. The other thing that you cannot do is redeposit the defined benefit supplement funds. So again, that's that second account where you've done maybe some extra work, and it's in that payment we pay it out, but you're not able to replenish that account if you were to take it out and then put the money back in. Any other questions there?
Yes. So my other question, or it's more of a comment. The health benefit, retiree health benefits may likely be the biggest hurdle that an active teacher might face. And since retiree health benefits are negotiated at the local level, we have hundreds of different options that teachers have depending on the district that they work with. I know that CalSTRS had done a few surveys a number of years ago to try to get an idea of what kind of health benefits that teachers had as retirees. And most districts across the state have retiree health up to age 65, and then it's Medicare. And it's some of the larger urban districts, so the LAUSD, Sac City, Elk Grove, some of our large urban districts have the retiree health benefits for life. But I think what you noted is going to be very important. It sounds like it's very essential for an active educator to find out what the rules of that contract is, because if the rule is that you have to retire immediately in order to get that benefit, that if you planned on pausing your work and then coming back, you might be starting that clock over. So it sounds like those details are going to be very important. But I do have a question for you, because since most of California's educators, 72% are women, and we've seen a lot of educators take time off when they have kids. So they take a pause and take some time off. Let's say that healthcare is not an issue because they have it through their spouse or their partner. So they're taken care of in the healthcare department. If someone decided that they wanted to take a break from teaching for a few years and healthcare weren't an issue, that could be something that someone may want to do if they so chose.
Absolutely. You can do that. You can, in some cases, if it's to care for someone, you can look into maybe family medical leave, or just being on an unpaid leave with the district. So you won't be earning any service credit if you're not being paid for that leave. But if you just wanted to pause and then come back, you can do so.
Thank you so much.
So what you also want to consider if you're thinking about taking your money out of CalSTRS as opposed to taking a service retirement, again, like I said, your account can accrue quite a bit of money. But what you'd want to take care and consideration about is Your CalSTRS benefit is a lifetime payment. Again, regardless of how much money you've paid into the system, it's based on a formula. And again, we can pay out after your death to someone else. If you were to take your contributions out of CalSTRS and put it into some other kind of program, can you guarantee that same amount of money for your life and possibly for someone else's lifetime? Again, usually if you put it into something like a 403B or an IRA, that's all based on market performance, so there is additional risk there. So again, at CalSTRS, we're not going to tell you what to do, but these are some of the things that you want to consider before ceasing your relationship with the system. Okay, any other questions here?
No, you've been very thorough.
Jennifer, this is Dave Walker.
Oh.
If I'm looking at these numbers correctly, your contribution and the state contributions are greater than the employee contribution. So if a person were to take their benefits out, they would be reducing by more than half. And that's pre-tax, before taxes are charged, more than half of their retirement funds. Is that about analysis?
That is very accurate, yes. So when you retire, you receive all of your money that you paid into the system, plus the state's contributions and your employer's contributions in the form of your monthly payment. And usually that money is exhausted very early on in retirement, within 5 years. So if you live longer than 5 years, CalSTRS, you're living off of CalSTRS payments, and that's the perfect design of a defined benefit. It goes on regardless of how much money is contributed in the system. We invest the money so that we can pay out actuarially for your lifetime. And the average retiree lives at least 25 years. And actually, California educators have the longest life expectancy out of any profession in the United States. So we pay out for a long time, and we're happy to do so. We have over 100 people that are over 100 years old and are still receiving retirement benefits. So it is a lifetime payment, and we hope that it will help you live comfortably in retirement. So thank you for that, David.
That also lets me think of, this is the other Jennifer again, it makes me think of a lot of other benefits that people aren't always aware of as an active teacher that are absolutely significant as a retiree. And I know you're going to talk about some of that later on, but losing benefits like the supplemental benefit maintenance account, which provides purchasing power for retirees who has had inflation erode their retirement salary lower than what it's really worth. Those are huge benefits that you certainly wouldn't get from a 403B or 401k if someone were in the private sector. So just some of those benefits alone, as well as a COLA, can have a significant financial impact on retirees, especially if they're living beyond what they may have anticipated that they were going to live beyond.
Absolutely. Definitely a very good point there. Thank you. All right. So we are going to switch gears and talk about, for those that are thinking, hey, I might want to retire this year, or maybe in the next couple of years, what are the steps that you need to consider? And I believe this is where we're going to pause for our poll.
Absolutely. Thank you. Very good timing, Jennifer. So for our members in the audience, we are actually going to launch our first poll. So we did want to ask you, when are you planning on retiring? Are you planning on retiring in 1 year, 5 years, or over 5 years? If you can click on the answer of your choice and click the submit button, we will get an idea of when you're planning on retiring. We're going to share all of those responses with you. I'm going to give you just about another minute. When are you planning on retiring? 1 year, 5 years, over 5 years? And we're going to go ahead and we're going to close that poll. And let me share the result with you. So 69% of you are planning on retiring within 1 year, 25% in 5 years, and 6% over 5 years. So I'm so glad that you're taking the time to participate in this workshop. So let me go ahead and hide the results. We're going to have a few more polls later on, but thank you so much. And we're going to go to the next.
All right. So Jennifer and David, is the slides still up there for you? The slideshow?
No, they're not, and I am trying to quickly go back to.
Yeah, it's not for me either. It's still the poll.
And for some reason that changed. So I am, there you go. Now
Okay.
that should do it. There we go.
Perfect. All
Yes,
right.
perfect.
So for those of you that are considering retiring within the next year or so, there are some steps that we'd like you to consider and take. You do have to be your own advocate to a certain extent. We're here at CalSTRS to walk you through some of those steps, but you have to do a little bit of homework yourself. This is a screenshot of the My CalSTRS account. So we hope that the majority of you have already established your own account on our website. If not, this is something like a to-do list. So what we'd like you to do is go ahead, log in, and you have your own access to your personal information. You can update your profile. So if you have moved, you can go ahead and submit those changes to us. There's a lot of things you can do as a current member and then also as a retiree. You can manage your beneficiary selection. So again, updating if that one-time death benefit. We recommend just reviewing who you've listed as the beneficiary every 5 years just to make sure it's up to date. And you can also view your retirement progress reports, which are really important documents that are published every year. And we'll go into that. Oh, let me go back. So the progress report does go over what you've done in the previous school year, what your service credit is, and also contributions that you've made to the system, and how much money you contributed to your defined benefit supplement account if you did extra work. We also want you to be familiar about how your CalSTRS benefit is calculated. So this is the formula. It's the same for everybody. There are 3 different factors. The first is service credit, and that's the time that you've worked and you've contributed to the system. So we do have full-time educators and part-time educators. So we will calculate all service credit that you've performed. The maximum number of years you can earn per school year is 1. So again, if you do additional work beyond your normal full-time contract, that will go into that defined benefit supplement account. We multiply your service credit by something called an age factor. This is an actuarial calculation. So every age has a certain percentage tied to it. We have these age factor tables on our website, in our member handbook, so you can correlate what your age is. Let's say if you're 60 and 0 months, years of age, that will have a certain age factor associated with it. If you're 61, 63, 55, there's all different percentages based on that age. So that will be put into the second part of the formula. And then we multiply by final compensation, which is salary history. Now, for those that have less than 25 years of service credit, we average your highest 36 consecutive months of service, or of salary, I should say. For those of you that have 25 years or more, we look at your highest 12 months or your highest year. So there is somewhat of an advantage if you reach that 25-year mark, that, you know, especially if your salary has increased in the year that you retire. We'll go ahead and use that one salary. But if you don't reach that 25-year mark and we have to use 3 years or 36 months, we average those salaries into a monthly salary. And when you multiply those 3 factors together, it's going to equal your retirement benefit, which is your monthly income before taxes guaranteed for the rest of your life. Now, again, this is a very brief, quick overview of how the formula works. You can get more information. There's a video. It's about 3 to 5 minutes on our website called Understanding the Formula. So if you go onto CalSTRS.com, and again, we have a resources document that will be emailed to you after this presentation that will give you a link to all those videos that you can, if you're interested in looking into the formula more, you can go ahead and peruse the video library.
Hey, Jennifer, I do know that we may have a number of part-time community college faculty that are watching the workshop, and unfortunately, these calculations become even more complicated for part-time community college faculty because you have to determine what your service credit is and final compensation. You have to do even more calculating. So I know that there are additional resources at CalSTRS specifically for community college faculty, but I just wanted to make a note of that, and I do have additional information regarding part-time community college faculty and how to calculate retirement information that I can make sure that I share on our website afterward. I just wanted to make sure that that we knew we've got not just K-12, but also our community college colleagues as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, in our member handbook as well, there is a section just for part-time educators, and there are some example scenarios about how exactly what you said, you know, how we calculate your service credit and your final compensation. So those would be another set of resources beyond what Jennifer will have on on the CalRTA website. So that's really good information. And I've worked a lot with the community colleges and the unions particularly. This is something that they're very passionate about, part-time educators, the part-time union leaders, and more and more of those union leaders have a good grasp about how their benefits are different than, say, a full-time educator. So you can also ask your union leader if they have additional information for you. If not, go ahead and make an appointment with CalSTRS, and we can run through how your benefit is calculated.
If I could make one more, Jennifer, if I could make one more note on that, because we do have some K-12 educators who may have taught a class at a community college or community college professor that may have come from the K-12 system. What is going to be very important before you contact CalSTRS, make sure you find out where you have your retirement, because I have been in a number of situations where I've had to talk with a community college part-time faculty member, and they have only then found out that they were in the CalSTRS defined benefit program at one district, they were in Social Security in another district, or an alternative retirement plan in another district. So if you're thinking about retirement and you're a part-time community college faculty member, it is very important for you to find out where you are with each district, and I would really encourage you to make sure that you're in the CalSTRS defined benefit plan for all of them. If you're likely to vest, you want to select what you think is going to be the best option for you, but unfortunately the rabbit holes go deep on that. So thank you for that.
No, thank you. That's a very good point. Just as a quick side note on that, you know, a district for part-time educators can offer, like you said, something other than CalSTRS. And if their preferred program is something other than CalSTRS, there's a narrow window of time. It's usually 60 days after you start your position at that employer. If you haven't designated what program you want to be in, they will put you in that other program, like Social Security or PARS or Apple or PAIR. Again, those are alternative programs to CalSTRS. There is also what's called cash balance, which is the part-time educator's retirement for CalSTRS. So it is a part-time benefit. It's not defined benefit. You pay in less, and it's a lesser benefit. So when you are looking at all of your intake information, you know, your new employer paperwork, it's oftentimes that the retirement election gets shuffled in and you don't know whether you signed it or not. So do take the time to read through, and if there's anything with CalSTRS or retirement, please take note of that. And there are some things that you can do if you are a participant of another program and you want to move into CalSTRS. We can talk about that as well.
Jennifer, can I ask another question? Because there could be some other factors that can influence this, the slide that you have, your service credit, age factor, and final compensation. So teachers can, or educators can use a certain amount of sick leave that they may have, right, to gain additional service credit. Can you talk about that a little bit so that folks can understand what they can and can't do with that?
Sure. So any sick leave that's accrued, any, I would say, full pay illness, not the half pay or differential pay, that's all converted into service credit when you retire. And so just a simple scenario, let's say that your annual contract with your employer is 180 days. So if you work 180 days, then you get a full year of service. If you've accrued 180 days of sick leave throughout your career, that will convert to 1 additional year of service credit. So that's added to that first part of the formula. Now, if let's say you're at 24.8 years of service, so you're not at 25 years of service, and you want to reach that 25 years so that we can use 12 months of salary as opposed to 36 months and average it. CalSTRS will allow you to use up to 2 months or 2/10 of a year to reach a milestone such as 25. So if you're at 24.8, we'll use 2/10 of your sick leave, 2/10 of a year of your sick leave to bump you up into that 25 year to give you that benefit enhancement. If you, for some reason, let's say you're at 24.4 years of service credit, we unfortunately can't use your sick leave to bump you up into that benefit enhancement, but we will use the sick leave as service credit. So again, that could be a little confusing, but there are some benefit enhancements. The first one is if you have 25 years of service credit, we can average 1 year of salary as opposed to averaging 3 years of salary. And you have to have 25 years. So if you're within 2 months of getting that milestone, we can use 2 months of sick leave, but no more than that.
And there's one more very important note when it comes to sick leave that might not be unique just to community college faculty, and that is to make sure that all of your sick leave, if you're planning on retiring, that you make sure it's all transferred or rolled over to the last district that you're at. So we have found out that there have been situations where an individual may not have moved their sick leave over from an employer. So if you're a part-time community college faculty member, or even if you're a teacher and let's say you had moved districts and maybe that's something that didn't get addressed, it's important to make sure that you move that sick leave over from your previous employer. And it's a little more complicated, again, if you're a part-time community college faculty member, but that is something that you want to make sure you do prior to retirement.
Absolutely. If you happen to have more than one employer in your last year of work, we can receive sick leave from the multiple employers, but just those employers that are in your last year. So again, like Jennifer said, if you've had previous employers in your career, do ask that they transfer that sick leave to your current employer or employers. All right. Moving right along, so we talked about how your defined benefit is calculated, and that's a formula. Now, the second account that you have is that defined benefit supplement, and this tends to be a little confusing because there's so many different payment choices. So again, this is your additional duties, this separate account that you have to choose to have paid out to you. There are 3 main choices. One is a lump sum. So you can take all of that money in that DBS account, either have it paid directly to you in cash with some tax withholding, or you can roll it over tax deferred into a qualified account that you may have established. So that could be your CalSTRS Pension 2 account, 403Bs, 457s, IRA accounts with another company, and then you can withdraw that money at a later time. So again, that's choice number 1, a lump sum, either directly paid to you or rolled over tax deferred. The second choice are annuities. So they can be paid out for each month for the rest of your life. We call that the lifetime monthly annuity. or we have annuities that can be paid out for a certain period of time. And those time frames range between 3 and 10 years. So for example, let's say you take a 3-year annuity. Each month for 36 months, you'll receive a payment from the DBS account. And after 36 months, the payments will stop. Okay? So on and so forth. You can do that 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, all the way up to 10 years. So those are our annuities, either the rest of your life or for a certain period. And you can choose a combination. So let's say you need, $10,000 you want to pay off, a car note or your car payment, and you have $50,000 in your defined benefit supplement account. You can withdraw a lump sum of $10,000 and you can annuitize the rest, the $40,000, and either have it paid out for the rest of your life or for a certain period of time. So again, lots of different choices, and we want you to know about the defined benefit supplement account before you get to that point of retirement, because this tends to be a little bit stressful because of there are so many choices, you don't know what you want to do with it. We do have a trilogy of videos on our website that talk about the defined benefit supplement, like what it is and how it came about, what your payment choices are, and the tax implications on each of the payment choices. So this is definitely something that you have to decide when you're filling out your paperwork, and it's a nice benefit to have, a little bit of extra income coming in for you. Any questions?
Yeah, Jennifer, I know that this is one of those areas where educators might be seeing an immediate impact, kind of an unanticipated impact to their retirement benefits, because a number of educators may be a coach after school or teaches choir, or you have someone that's working overload within the community college system. So there are a number of ways that educators, let's say if you teach summer school, there are a number of ways that someone works more than 1 year, and then you're having your funds put into a defined benefit supplement account. But because of what's happening with COVID, it's very likely that you might not be doing that, which means you still have your funds in your account, but it may not be growing at the rate that it has been. And so it might be taking a little hit. And so if you're not planning on retiring for another 5 years, and we're counting on a certain amount of funds being in your DBS account, you may want to consider factoring in that there could be a few years of reductions. But I did want to ask a question about your defined benefit supplement account. If someone were to take a pause for a few years, and if they had the opportunity to do that, and then we're going to wait to retire, let's say for 2 or 3 more years, they were just going to stop working because retiree health issue wasn't an issue for them, and said, well, what if I'm going to take out a loan from a 401k that I had in the private sector or something like that? Could someone use their DBS, this lump sum that you were talking about, and actually use that to pay for a loan? Because it sounds like that issue might be more complicated than someone might think. So is that something they can do or not?
So in order for you to access the defined benefit supplement or DBS, you actually have to service retire. So you have to fill out our paperwork and submit it to CalSTRS so that you are, actually service retired. So if you were to take a pause and then just decide to retire, that would be totally fine. If you took a pause and then went back to work, but during that period of time you took a loan from your 403B or 457, you can't actually borrow from the DBS account prior to retirement. So you would have to pay back that loan in other means. However, let's say you do decide to retire and you're going to take the defined benefit supplement money, as you have to, and you have taken a loan, you've already taken a loan from your 403B or 457, essentially, yes, once that money is given to you, that's your money to do what you choose with. So if you wanted to then use that to help pay for that loan that you took, you can, but not prior to retirement. Any other questions there?
Thank you.
Okay. So we're going to move on to the third part of our three-legged stool, which is the totally optional CalSTRS Pension 2, and it's our defined contribution plan. And we have 403Bs and 457B products. Every district is different on their offerings. We hope we're in every district. If not, please let us know, and we will definitely reach out to your district to have us added as one of your programs. Because California is an any vendor state, that means any vendor, whether it be Vanguard or Mid-America or, ING, if they want a 403B product, a district will offer it. We have a website called 403bcompare.com, so you can look up your district and you can see all of the 403B programs that your district participates in or offers and look at their fee structures, their performance levels, if they have any withdrawal penalties. They have to maintain that information and send it to CalSTRS on a quarterly basis. If they don't, then they get taken off of the website. So it's a really good resource if you're thinking about starting a 403B program, or if you are not necessarily happy with the one that you have, or you just don't know. You can compare the various choices your district has. We're not going to say you have to go with Pension 2, which is the CalSTRS product, but we are revenue neutral, which means that we are not making money on your accounts. We really just want to make sure that you have additional funds besides your main retirement with CalSTRS. So that could be in the form of a 403B or 457, an IRA, real estate if you have it, rental income, or have a savings account. On average, CalSTRS will replace a little over 50% of your working salary. So that may not be enough to live comfortably in retirement. So we want you to try to plan to put away more money beyond what your regular pension provides. We have a whole side of our website dedicated to Pension 2, and our record keeper is Voya Financial, and we have financial planners from Voya that are not commissioned. You can actually get a statement comparison that say that you have something with Mid-America and you want to compare it to Pension 2. They'll go ahead and walk you through if Pension 2 is a better deal, then they say, hey, you might want to switch. But let's say you have a withdrawal penalty if you were to take out your Mid-America account prior to that time limit. They'll say, you know what, why don't you just wait till that time limit elapses and then look about switching over to CalSTRS. So again, we want to make sure that you're saving as much money as possible, and we won't sell you a product that won't save you money. And if you do have an account somewhere else, that's great, because that means that you're putting aside money to help you in retirement. Jennifer, did you have questions about this?
Yeah, so one of my questions was, let's say that I was a long-term planner and I started a 403B very early on in my 20s or 30s. And so I have a little nest egg there, and I wanted to take a pause before I retire, because again, retiree healthcare isn't an issue. Could I begin a distribution of my 403B or 457 prior to retiring from CalSTRS? So let's say I was going to try to postpone actually triggering my CalSTRS retirement, but just try to live off of this supplemental savings account. Is that something that people can do?
Yes, you can look into either taking a distribution from those accounts if you meet certain eligibility requirements, and they're different between 403B and 457 accounts, or you can consider taking a loan. But yes, it is a possibility, because the differences are, but there has to be a separation. So you actually have to be separated from your employer in order for that to happen if you're going to take a distribution. The loan is a little bit different. There are different rules, and there's also additional rules with the CARES Act, which has to do with COVID-19. So there are provisions there that allow you to take a loan or distribution and possibly defer the taxes that you'll receive from 1 to 3 years. So it's quite complex. There's different ramifications for which way you're going to go. But normally you can take a loan out to purchase your first house, and you can pay that back within, the maximum is 10 years. If you're just going to take like a hardship loan out, you have to pay it back within 5 years, and they're a set number of payments. You can either, set it up for that or just pay it out in full if you have the funds. So it is something that you can explore. For more detailed information, especially with Pension 2, we do have what's called defined contribution support. It's a team, and you can call them and they can answer those questions specifically. Or you can meet with one of our defined contribution specialists in an appointment. If you have an account with another company, you might want to reach out to them on any rules or restrictions, especially if there's any withdrawal penalties. Any other questions there?
No, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Moving right along. So also what you need to do is when you're thinking about retiring, there are various choices you have to make. And we have a guide called your retirement guide. So this screenshot shows you our website, and the little red banner towards the upper portion of the screen, that's where all of our resources can be found. The one that's circled is publications, so that's where you would find the retirement guide, and you can download a copy of that guide as well as the service retirement application from our website. It has timelines, to-do lists, checklists. It goes into a greater description on the choices you need to make. So we do want you to read through the booklet because this is a legal document. This is something that you're doing. You are attesting to the knowledge when you sign your application that you agree to the terms of the application, or the CalSTRS. You understand what you're deciding to do. So you do want to take the time and read through the documents if at all possible. We know that there's some people that have to retire tomorrow and may not get that chance, but if you do have some time, go ahead, download the form, and take a couple pages every night for the next month or so, just so you're more aware of and more affiliated with the jargon that's CalSTRS. There's a lot of retirement lingo that you may not have been aware of or not as familiar with. So this is what the retirement guide looks like. Again, if you were to click that publications icon on our website, and it'll pop up, you can download it on PDF. We can also mail it to you if you call us and you'd rather have a paper copy and not print it out yourself. You also want to make sure that you know what you're getting in retirement. What is your defined benefit going to be? What's your defined benefit supplement going to be? You can find that information in your annual progress report, and you can get that through your My CalSTRS account. And you can also get estimates from a benefit specialist if you were to join us in a webinar or an individual telephone session. And you can also play around with our calculators online and run various estimates. So the progress report will give you 2 scenarios if you retire this year and potentially next year. But let's say you want to retire in 5 or 6 years. You can go ahead and run different scenarios online. So you would click on our calculators icon, and it'll bring up this page, and you just have to type in the day you want to retire, your birth date, your service credit, so all the information pertinent to that specific time of retirement, and it'll generate your estimated amount each month.
Jennifer, can I ask you a question on that? So,
yes.
So let's say you know what you're going to get from your defined benefit, and you know that you've got resources in your defined benefit supplement account. When you actually get your monthly check, are you getting 2 separate checks, or are the funds that you're receiving from your defined benefit supplement funds, is that just being added to one big check? How does an individual receive that?
They are 2 separate accounts, so they're paid out separately, but they come at the same time. So especially if you do direct deposit, you'll see it come in at the same time. But because they're, they have different rules and different laws associated with them, they are paid out separately.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you do have to do a number of fill out a number of paperwork with CalSTRS, but you also have to do some paperwork with your district, your employer. So you have to resign from your employer and you retire from CalSTRS. So you want to check in with your employer regarding the resignation process. It may be a little bit different, especially during COVID. A lot of times it used to be just a one-page piece of paper that you have your direct supervisor sign, but it may be electronic in your district. So every district is different, and you do want to check in with them about all of the requirements that they have with the resignation process. You also want to research your health benefits. So again, like we've been alluding to earlier, a lot of times if you have lifetime health benefits, that's just as valuable as your pension. So you want to make sure you follow those rules. Other districts may, again, as Jennifer said, will provide you your medical until you turn 65 and then drop you off at Medicare. And some districts may not provide anything after retirement. CalSTRS, we do not provide health benefits. It's not part of our system. So you can shop around for coverage. Covered California is something you can look into, as well as HICAP is a nonprofit organization that helps with those that are on Medicare look at supplemental programs. So yeah, so you do have to talk to your employer and be educated on what type of health benefits may or may not be available to you at that time. Are there any questions there?
Yeah, so there are a few, I would say, kind of questions and comments, because I think this is one of the most complex issues that not just educators but districts are also dealing with. So on the health benefits, if we don't yet know yet because it's still premature, but if we were to see, let's say, an increase in the amount of educators that are retiring now, so that would have been something that we hadn't anticipated, which means that's going to make life very exciting for the system actuaries at CalSTRS and those of us that follow those issues over the next few years. But that could also potentially have an impact on some districts when you look at the retiree healthcare costs and your overall health costs. So that's something that educators and districts are going to need to be aware of. If there is a slight uptick, maybe those costs may be somewhat absorbable for districts that have a trust or have already set money aside. It might not be significant, but it would depend on the amount of it would depend on the amount of retirees that districts would see. So I did want to note that for those of you that are involved in these issues, I would really encourage you to start thinking about the long-term impacts that this could have for you at the local level. And we're also looking at how this could impact CalSTRS at the statewide level if we have an increase in retirees and don't have enough active teachers coming in to replace them. I did also want to note that there are a few things that you need to consider, and there are also some complexities for districts, because if someone needs to take time off due to COVID, so you're going to utilize CARES Act. What is happening is there are different levels for the kind of leave that you can utilize under that. So there's a full-time leave, there's 2/3 leave, half-time leave, etc., and different pay rates associated with that. But it is somewhat like FMLA. So for those of you that have ever used a Family Medical Leave Act, it's not quite going to be 100% of what you were at. So what some districts also might be doing, and again, this is really going to vary by district. So it's going to be something that you're going to need to check into. But I have been hearing reports that some districts might be allowing an educator to be able to use a portion of their sick leave. So let's say they're using 1/10 of their sick leave daily while they're on this CARES Act leave, to make sure that that's keeping their salary level and everything at 100% of what it was. But that could mean that they could be potentially beginning to if this were to happen for a longer period of time, could be now eating into the sick leave that an individual has, or depending on how much sick leave an individual has, they may or may not have that option. So that is one specific area where COVID could be impacting your sick leave. And again, remember earlier in Jennifer's presentation when she was talking about how you can use sick leave to help to enhance your overall service credits. You want to think about how this could potentially have a nuanced impact on your retirement. And then also, if we do see an increase in educators that are needing to utilize CARES Act leave, or some districts may also be using workers' comp once they've exhausted and gone through CARES Act. So we could see districts that have increased costs at the local level because of that. So they're paying for the individual that's out, and then they're also paying for another individual. So unfortunately, this could be an issue where you could see districts squeeze at the local level financially. But the good news is the way the CARES Act has been set up, or if a district, if an individual has to take off because of COVID, and if their district utilizes workers' comp instead, that still keeps your retirement whole. So you are getting paid for that time. It is getting reported to CalSTRS. So it's sounding like those may likely be the two primary options that districts might use if an individual has to take time due to COVID for themselves or their family. But it's just important to think about the external impacts this could have on you if you choose to have to utilize some of your sick leave, or you know, for those of you that are involved with your local bargaining units, this could potentially be an added complexity to the already complex arena of fiscal issues that you have to consider.
Thank you. Okay, so switching gears. This is Social Security. There are some provisions that affect you as public educators in California. There are two. The first one is the windfall elimination provision, and then the second is the government pension offset. What I will do is share or give the time over to David, because he is a wealth of knowledge regarding these two provisions. But you also want to go ahead and contact the Social Security Administration and look at your Social Security statements if you have paid into Social Security through work in the private sector. So Dave, do you want to take it over?
Thank you, Jennifer. Both of these affect Social Security. They do not affect your CalSTRS retirement. If you are counting on Social Security funding to help supplement your CalSTRS retirement, that funding may be less than you had anticipated because of these two provisions. The windfall elimination provision deals with your own earned Social Security. So if you have been working in the summer evenings, if you worked in private industry before you came into teaching, or you left teaching and you go into working in private industry and then came back, any of those factors, effectively the windfall elimination provision will cut in half the Social Security payment you would have otherwise received if you had not been part of CalSTRS. This is not simply a provision that affects only educators or only educators in California. It affects people in all 50 states, and it's a significant issue that Congress is looking at. The second is government pension offset. That deals with spousal benefits that have been earned by a Social Security earner. So if you have a spouse who's been working in private industry and paying into Social Security, part of that Social Security payment is to provide a benefit for the spouse when the earner retires. Once again, that spousal benefit could be reduced or eliminated because of your pension from CalSTRS. These are both complex calculations. They only start happening when you're eligible or if you file for Social Security, or if your spouse files for Social Security and includes you on the spousal benefit. Definitely talk to the Social Security Administration. Make sure that they're aware that you're an California educator, and make sure that you understand all the potential ramifications, because these do have significant financial penalties, and often social, if they're just sending you generic information, do not include the information you need to know that you would not be receiving the benefit that might be presented by Social Security. Once again, this is very complex. It depends upon whether you do have a spouse or you're eligible for a spousal benefit, when people are retiring, what the amount is, what the amount of your CalSTRS pension is. All of these different pieces, just be aware that these are potential reductions, or in many cases, absolute reductions to Social Security benefits that would otherwise be available.
Dave, could if I could add a few issues, these are absolutely unfair offsets that really discriminate against educators in California, and this is also a women's issue, because 72% of educators in California are women, and so then who live longer. So the GPO impacting the spousal benefit is absolutely significant, and a number of stakeholders have been working to try to eliminate these over the years. CalRTA has been extremely active trying to do what we can to see if we can get these eliminated in one of the next stimulus plans. As you can imagine, it's a very complex situation we're dealing with. I did have a technical question, Dave, that I did want to ask based on earlier in the presentation when Jennifer was talking about refunds from CalSTRS. I know that some individuals were curious to find out, if you took a CalSTRS refund, is that a way that you can avoid being impacted by the WEP and GPO?
Let me start. Thank you for the question. Let me start with windfall elimination provision. The windfall elimination provision will affect you even if you take a CalSTRS refund and have no CalSTRS benefit. The only way to avoid the windfall elimination provision is to have 120 quarters of Social Security or more. And it's highly unlikely that if you have been an educator for any number of years, you will be able to have 120 quarters in Social Security. So withdrawing funds and not retiring from CalSTRS does not protect you from elimination provision. On the government pension offset, it's a little bit more complex, because this is a benefit that is the government pension offset reduces the spousal side of Social Security. If you take all your money out and you never go back into CalSTRS, then you might not be affected by the GPO. The point I want to make is that the amount that you lose by taking your by reducing your full CalSTRS benefit probably is a greater family loss than the loss of the spousal benefit while your Social Security earner is still alive. But you would have to do that math and the probabilities of the loss on both sides. I personally believe that it'd be very, very difficult to, by having full spousal benefit and the death benefit under Social Security, whether it be possible that that would make up for the losses that would occur if you took the money out.
Thank you, Dave.
Any other questions or comments regarding the two provisions from Social Security? No? Okay, so let's go ahead and try to wrap this up. We just have a few more slides. So what do you need to do for CalSTRS? Apply for retirement, and that's an application. The earliest that you can submit your paperwork is 6 months before your retirement date. The last possible date that we can receive your paperwork is up in the air, because as far as CalSTRS is concerned, you can submit your application retroactively. However, your district may have different rules or provisions, especially again for those districts that are offering lifetime medical benefits. They usually require that you resign on your last day of employment or whatever day that's going to be, retire the next day, and have that paperwork on file with CalSTRS prior to that retirement date. If it's after that retirement date, there could be some complications with the processing of their side of the paperwork for those health benefits. So again, usually, hopefully, you have a plan in place and you know when you want to retire, and you want to submit that paperwork within that 6-month period. And you can go ahead and do that on paper, or you can do it online through your My CalSTRS account. It's processed actually quicker if you do it online, because we take out the human process. We don't have our analysts looking over your paperwork. It's done automatically overnight. So this is what the application looks like, paper form, and you'll fill that out. If you were to do it online, you'll go ahead and go through each page and click some buttons and type in some numbers and letters. We also have application roundtable workshops. So if you have already seen us, you have an estimate, you know what your choices are, but you just need some extra guidance or assurance that you're filling out the paperwork correctly, we have application roundtable workshops that, if you're filling it out in paper, we can walk you through the paper process. Also, if you decide to do it online, we have online workshops. So if you're going to do it that way.
Jennifer, this was,
yes.
if we could, this was going to be where we were going to pause and do our second polling question. So I'm gonna add the poll onto the computer screen, and then we'll switch back over. So the second polling question that we did want to query you with today is, what is the primary reason you plan on retiring? Is it due to COVID-19 pandemic or not? Because there were a lot of things going on. Is it lack of adequate school funding, lack of adequate support for educators, or is there a separate reason, which is the primary reason why you're planning on retiring? So if you could, or considering retiring, so if you can please select an answer, and don't forget to click that submit button. I'm going to give you just a few more seconds there to answer those questions. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to close that up. And I did want to share with you that the primary reason that individuals did note was due to the pandemic, but that's not the only reason. So a number of you have other reasons. So with that, Jennifer, it looks like your slide is still up.
Perfect.
And we'll go ahead and go on.
Okay. So after you've filled out your paperwork and you've serviced or retired and have that lovely party celebrating, there are some things that you have to consider after you retire. There is a separation from service requirement. So this only has to do with coming back to work in a CalSTRS covered position. So that would be pre-K through community college in public schools in California. If you're going to work anywhere outside of that, there's no limit, we don't look at it, and there's no restriction. So for the first 180 days after your retirement date, there is a requirement to sit out. If you don't sit out and you happen to go back to work, there would be a consequence where we have to take your pension dollar or pension back dollar for what you earn in that first 180-day period. There's also, every year, there's earnings limits. So after that 180 days has elapsed, you can go back to a CalSTRS covered position. Usually it's part-time, and there is a limit. The current limit for the 2020-21 school year is $47,713. So you can go back to work, earn up to that amount, and still receive your monthly CalSTRS benefit. Jennifer, did you have questions about this?
Yeah, there were a couple of important things for individuals to consider. Even prior to the pandemic, there was a shortage of substitute teachers. And so it's important for someone that has retired to make sure you are keeping track of those 180 days, or if there is someone that works for the district that's also monitoring this, it's important to make sure you're keeping track of that 180 days. But if you do come back, let's say you get a call, the district says, Mrs. Gray, we know you retired, but we need someone for a couple of weeks because the person that was taking care of our kids is taking COVID leave. Can you just come in for 2 weeks to help us out? If it's at 150 days, you still have 30 days on the clock, and you will essentially be working for free for that time. There isn't a prohibition from coming back. So if you wanted to come back and work for free, you're able to do that, but you just need to realize that there are limits. And the limit that you have is something that's applicable to everyone. So that same amount is going to be the same amount that a chancellor or a superintendent would get as well. It's applicable to everyone.
There are some exemptions to the earnings limit for the, or from the separation from service requirement and earnings limit, but they are quite narrow in scope. So for more information, you can go on our website, and we have all of the exceptions. But again, they've been even more scrutinized over the years through pension reform. So it is quite hard to be exempted from these requirements to either sit out for the 180 days and not earn any money in those positions.
You know, Jennifer, if I could also add, let's say it's been past 6 months. So it's past 6 months, you can come back and now you can begin to earn. You just can't earn over that, the amount that's set annually, or CalSTRS does reduce that. So if you wanted to, let's say it's been, a year and a half, or excuse me, a year, or, 9 months, you want to come back, that's totally fine. But one of the individuals was asking, if you do come back, is that going to enhance your defined benefit supplement account? And then another question people usually have is, if I come back and I'm substituting or working in that capacity, am I adding to my CalSTRS benefit?
No, because you are in service retirement status, you're no longer contributing to the system. So we are not taking contributions out of your paycheck each month. You're just getting paid from your employer. So no, you wouldn't be accumulating any more service or DBS contributions, none of that, because again, we're paying out your retirement benefit. Now, if you come to a point in time where you're getting close to that $48,000 limit, and you think you may be going over that, of course, we're going to take it back dollar for dollar. But if it's going to be significant, then you can consider canceling or your retirement and reinstating to active member status. So that is possible. There is a process and there's paperwork regarding that. And if you were to do that, your retirement benefit would stop. So your monthly payment would cease. You become an active member again. You start receiving your checks from your district. You start contributing to CalSTRS like you would as a normal member. But then when you retire for a second time, there is a calculation done. It's called a multiple retirement calculation, and it takes into consideration how long you went back to work. And there are two different calculations. If you went back to work for for less than 2 years, there's a certain calculation, or if you went back to work for over 2 years, it's a different calculation. Won't go into the specifics there because it becomes a little bit more cumbersome without seeing the numbers and how it's calculated. So if that is something you're interested in looking into, that say you've retired and thinking about maybe reinstating, we can do some estimates for you. Just call us for an estimate or two to go over those various calculations. All right. Moving along, also in retirement, your benefit increases. You get a little raise every year. So it's 2%. It's non-compounded, so it's not adjusted for inflation. But once you've been retired a full year, in September, that 2% kicks in. It shows up in your October statement every year. So every October, your pension will go up 2%. Now, the one caveat is that 2% kicks in after you've been retired in that next September. If you retire after August 31st, so after September, that 2% payment will be delayed an additional year. So you have to retire before September 1st for that 2% to kick in that next year. If it's after August 31st, then it will be delayed 2 years. But it's a nice little bump in your pay. And over time, though, inflation is quite low right now, and it has been for a while. But over time, if inflation rises, your benefit dollar will pay for less and less. So inflation will eat away the purchasing power of your benefit. If it ever gets to 85% of its purchasing power, CalSTRS will maintain the value of your benefit up to 85%, and we will send you checks quarterly to maintain that purchasing power. So you don't have to worry about monitoring the value of your benefit. We do that automatically. But it is a nice little safety net with inflation. It does take quite a while for these supplemental checks to kick in. I don't know the current status, but at least 15 or so years has kind of been the average or so when inflation has taken its toll on your benefit. But it could also be longer, again, just based on inflation rates right now. Did you have any comments, Jennifer or Dave, about this?
Yeah, you know,
Okay.
so based on what you were noting in the annual benefit adjustment, I know that typically in the past, most teachers and educators would tend to retire at the end of the school year, or sometimes we would see some doing it in December, a little higher for the community college numbers. So it sounds like it's an individual. CalSTRS doesn't care at what point an individual retires. You can retire at any time. But a few things that they need to consider are, number one, that annual benefit adjustment, and then they would also need to check to see if there are any local penalties or restrictions that a district might have. But that, I guess my other question that I would also ask is, could that potentially impact any defined benefit supplement earnings? Let's say if I just retired mid-semester, could it potentially have an impact on my DBS account?
So yeah, so a couple of the points that you brought up. First is, if you do a mid-year retirement, again with CalSTRS, that's okay. We process applications as they come in. One possible ramification is often, let's say that you normally work the school year, if you're a 10-month employee, some districts will pay you over 12 months. So they're spreading your salary so you get a paycheck every year, or every month, excuse me. So like maybe for the summer months, you're getting paid, but you're actually not working and doing the duties as an educator. Because they're prepaying you for the summer months, you may have to owe those summer months back to the employer. So do check with your district if that's something that your district does. There may also be a choice where you can get paid per day, so on a day-for-day basis, and not get prepaid if you don't want to deal with that owing the district back money. Also, if you're retiring mid-year and this year you happen to go up in the salary scale, or your district is giving you a raise, we can only calculate for final compensation the number of months that you work in this year. So that's just make it easy. Let's say you only work 6 months this year and retire. We can only use 6 months of that higher salary, and then we have to go back to the previous school year and use 6 months at that lower salary and average it out. So that can lower that final compensation, which is the third part of the formula. The defined benefit supplement, if you are not retiring, if you're not full-time, if you're full-time, you're not earning a full year of service credit. So if you happen to do additional duties, that defined benefit supplement will not, the contributions may not go into the DBS because we're using as much service credit in that year. All the service that you perform, whether it's your full-time pay, your full-time duties, and your part-time duties will be used towards getting as much service credit for the defined benefit. So you likely will not contribute to the DBS if you're doing a mid-year retirement. Okay, any other
And
questions?
Jennifer,
Yeah.
on the 2% annual, it is simple. So let me give a quick example of what that means.
Sure.
Let's say if I retired now, I would have a monthly benefit of $3,000. 1% of that is $30, 2% of that is $60. So next September, I would have an increase in my monthly check of $60. The next September after that, it would be another 60. 10 years later, it still would be on the September anniversary, $60. And so that is the case of simple rather than compounded. And I wanted to just make sure everybody understood that differentiation.
Perfect, thank you for that. Okay, and then what we also want you to do, again, is be as prepared as possible with your CalSTRS knowledge. Review your benefit estimates, explore liking and options. So come talk to us. I would say don't come see us yet. Again, we are closed. All of our offices are closed to the public at this point because of COVID. We're looking at reopening probably not until next year because we have to retrofit our offices to make sure we're following social distancing rules. But we're available over the phone, and we're looking at interactions through Zoom if you want to have individual sessions where it's more personal, where you can see the specialist that you're working with. So we're piloting that right now, but we're still here for you, just in a different manner. We also have workshops that are offered weekly. You can go on our website and sign up for that. But again, get those estimates from us and talk to us so that you have the information sooner rather than later. Even if you're not retiring this year, it's never too early to start learning about your CalSTRS benefits. Again, because it's very complex, and you know, we see people a few times throughout their career, and when they get to that point that they want to retire, they're like, okay, I have a pretty good grasp. If you come and do the work yourself, as well as come see us to verify that what you're learning is correct, and we're happy to see you. We also have a financial awareness workshop series. So this is not CalSTRS specific. It goes into other aspects of finances. So budgeting basics, planning for your future. So what's your lifestyle going to be like in retirement, and protecting your assets. So retirement for some people, it is risky because you're now going to be on fixed income. So you'd want to see, you know, tapping into what you've done throughout your whole lifetime, putting away savings, other income sources, wrapping those all together. Is that going to be enough for a comfortable lifestyle? So these you can do in no particular order. They're all helpful, and a lot of our retirees actually come back and participate in these webinars as well. These are the resources. Again, CalSTRS.com and your My CalSTRS account. This is our 800 number, so you can ask questions and set up appointments to come and to talk to us. I believe our hours have been adjusted from this slide, but we are pretty much available throughout your workday, and we're here to assist anytime that you need to. If you were to go online, it's available 24/7.
And
So
we were going to jump to our third poll, and we're almost done. And there's some more very juicy information that we were going to share, but we wanted to pause for just a quick moment and launch our third poll, which is also going to be very helpful to CalSTRS. What age group do you belong to? I'm anticipating you're probably not from the 18 to 30 years old, but we all wish we were at some time. If you can click on what age group you belong to and let us know so we can get an idea of where you are. We also want to make sure that we're putting together future webinars that are really going to work for the demographics that people need. So thank you so much for those responses. Let me go ahead and close the poll and share the results with you. Yep, you're not 18 to 30, but we're looking at 45 to 60 for 43% of you, and 57% of you are 61 years old. So thank you for that, or I should say 61 years young. So now we get to the last section.
So, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, we for the questions section.
Did you want me to bring up the camera now?
Yeah, and this was we were going to put ourselves back on screen so you could see Jennifer, and myself. We answered most of the questions that people included live, but I did have a question for you going back to disability benefits. So is a disability benefit, is it based on earned or earnable income?
So
Yeah, that's a good one.
So I don't want to get out of turn. I'm actually not a specialist anymore. I used to be years ago, but it would be the way we calculate it at this point is on your earned, and then our disability analyst will provide the final estimates for you. So go ahead and you can apply and then talk to your disability analyst, who will be your #1 go-to person to go into the specifics on that.
Thank you. And I know that there is a significant amount of resources on disability retirement that you have on your website as well that could help to clarify any questions that people might have on that.
Absolutely. Yes. We have videos, we have a pamphlet, and then also the application, which is a large booklet. We'll go over all of the ways that it's calculated.
Right. Dave, did you have any additional information that we haven't gone over you wanted to share? I know we went over some juicy topics.
Not at this time, but do want to remind everybody that if they think of a question that they want to ask, you should have our contact information. Please go ahead and ask it after the webinar.
And I have been trying to answer questions live, and then additionally, if you, as Dave noted, if you have additional questions, such as Scott was asking some great questions in relation to part-time community college faculty, we're going to take additional questions offline, and we will put questions and answers on our website. This webinar is also going to be available and linked on the website. So if you did want to share this with any of your colleagues or someone in your district that you think might benefit from some of this information, feel free to do so. We'll make sure that we send that information out, as well as some excellent resources that Jennifer from CalSTRS has shared to help answer any questions you might have and be a guide. And I do have to tell you, and those of you that know me know that I get on people for this, you need to contact your CalSTRS counselor if you're even thinking about retiring and you haven't done that, because there can be situations where you may have had service credit reported incorrectly to a district that you need to make sure it's addressed before you retire. Or there are additional considerations that you hadn't thought of. So make sure you take the time to do that so you have the options you need for yourself. Or considering consider what's going to be best for you at the local level. With that, I want to say thank you to everyone for participating, and thank you for taking the time to share with us today. Feel free to reach out if you have any other questions, and I hope you all stay safe and have a wonderful day. Thank you. And then Jennifer, can you click the stop broadcast?